You want me to say that, transform the way that people see the world through?
You're not far off.
Wholeheartedly, this booking this role has really changed my life, and it's really spun a new perspective on what I think I can do in the future going forward. And I'm just kind of curious as to how did you decide on me? What was the casting process like?
Well, I mean, same goes back to you. I mean, I thank you so much for being in it, and thank you for elevating this insane script that I wrote in A&W. But yeah, it was really hard to find you, Isaiah.
I just don't understand why you won't apply to Canadian universities.
Because I don't want to be like a Canadian filmmaker.
What about Adam McGuane or David
Cronenberg. Oh my God.
Where did he go?
No, Mom, I want to go to NYU.
Anyone else in your class going to NYU? Where are they going?
I don't know. They're probably going to go to Guelph
Honey,
or something.
NYU
They're
is
idiots.
very expensive.
Tourism
We're
and
talking about
business
American
management.
Tuition.
I was just in an open casting call. We auditioned 300 boys across Canada, and you were one of the last self-tapes that I watched. And it was so weird because I saw these really crazy, radical, different interpretations of this character that I wrote. And, it was so funny actually because I remember the self-tape we were watching before on the reel, there was the scene of them playing a bully that was beating up Nicolas Cage. And I was like, no one who could ever play a character that could also beat up Nicolas Cage could play Lawrence. I don't care how much range that person has. And it was just so not the right vibe. It was this weird man wearing a man scarf. And he was probably in his late 20s trying to seem like a 16-year-old boy. And I was like, God, I'm never going to find this person. This is hell. And then your audition tape was next. And I was and me and Lindsay, my producer, we just kind of clutched each other and we were like, we found him. Thank God.
How many more rounds of casting did you do? Because to be totally honest, I thought after the first one, I'm like,
well, it's
funny. 4 more rounds.
Well, it's funny because I felt like I was in a weird way, I would be auditioning other guys, but then we would talk on Instagram for 3 hours.
That is
true. I was
cheating
on people on the side. And my mom was always like, "Why are you always talking to this boy?" I'm because I think I'm gonna cast him in the film. I really feel he's it. And she's like, "Well, you talk to him a lot." I'm like.
And the Santa Claus 2 will be in Theater 12.
2 tickets to Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love, please.
Okay. Are you paying in cash or?
Yeah, cash. Oh, no, Matt. I got this.
What was the first audition process for you? Were you nervous or? We met on Zoom.
Yeah.
We didn't really meet in real life until you came to shoot the movie.
Yeah. The first tape I shot at home with Jen. But then my agent, Stacy, did not like it. And so she made me do it again, and I went and taped it with my friend Adam DeMarco, and it was, more quiet.
Yeah, what really struck me is just, the sincerity of it. I felt like other people were really overplaying it. And you were wearing, a T-shirt from the Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Which
strategic,
instantly
puppet master, social engineer.
Which instantly made me like you. And then, it was just so, straightforward, really understated. And then it was crazy because then when all the other stuff you did, it was the opposite. And I was like, wow, you have so much range.
Interesting.
But yeah, I also remember you auditioning and you did the dinner table scene. And my mom watched some of the audition tapes and she watched yours and she was like, yep, he's a movie star. He's got it. I know people who have it, but you shouldn't cast him. And I was like, why? And she's like, because he's too much like you. And it's going to freak people out and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah. It is freaking people out and making them uncomfortable. You're right. She was right.
In a good way, I guess. Yes. All the way to the bank.
All the way to the bank.
I'm just kidding. But you prepared for a really long time to play Lawrence.
Yeah.
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 And we watched a lot of movies together.
We watched a lot of movies together,
That's
over Zoom and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you watched Frances Ha, which made you feel scared to be an adult.
Yeah, Frances Ha was scary, and the idea of relinquishing your dreams and I understand that it's like a cathartic, like growing up, but it's just scary. It's scary.
What movies did you watch when you were a teenager? Like, I know you're really into anime.
Yeah. Definitely I like engaged mostly with like anime and video games, like a lot of anime movies, like a lot of Satoshi Kon movies and stuff.
Yeah, and you showed me Perfect Blue.
Yeah, I sent you Perfect Blue,
Paprika.
Paprika. Yeah, I guess at the time, like, I liked Kubrick movies. I seen a lot of Kubrick movies at that point. Just a lot of shit that, like, they would tell, like, a teenage boy on the internet to watch. Like, dude, I got a movie for you. Have you ever seen Drive by Ryan Gosling? You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I was mostly like engaging, like, I was just like obsessed with Evangelion and like Serial Experiments Lane and like a lot of like early Gynax, Studio Gynax stuff.
And then, you know, what was really moving to me is when you were talking about some of your acting heroes, like Philip Seymour Hoffman and Danny DeVito. Like, those are such like unusual kind of role models for like a young man. But
yeah.
Why do you like Danny DeVito so much?
I mean, like, I like that they do interesting work and that they have, like, they can do these bigger, broader comedic things, but also still be, like, a really thoughtful and, you know, grounded actor with, like, who can do stuff with a lot of depth. I like the ability to not be categorized in that way, like only doing a specific kind of thing. And also, I guess, it's kind of like a schluppy young guy. Like, I never could project myself onto Chris Pine or like Chris Evans. It's like, that is not me. I will never be that guy. So yeah, seeing someone who I could kind of like, project myself onto in that way too is really strong.
Well, that was really important for me because I feel like it's you know, I feel it, and I'd love to ask you about this. It's just kind of like finding, like, if you felt like there's been barriers in terms of your career, in terms of, you know, people not thinking that you're like a leading man, which you so obviously are.
Oh yeah, totally. I feel like I run into that in like all aspects of my life. Like, people just don't like take me seriously at all. Because
me too.
People just don't take me seriously because of, you know what I mean? Like, just because of the way I am, you know. But I can be serious. Serious guy. You see the movie, you know? Yeah,
you got the range.
No, totally.
But yeah, I think that was an interesting thing for me too, because I think in a weird way, like auditioning actors and stuff, it's almost like people need people to be normal, to like feel secure or something, or like actors need to be kind of a blank slate for you to like project yourself into by being the most like unthreatening like things possible. And when as soon as we started like working together, it's like you just popped off the screen and all of your choices were like really interesting. I know we talked a lot about like Adam Sandler, kind of like those deliveries where Adam Sandler just like starts screaming, and it's so funny. And I remember like looking at the script that all the notes you prepared, and you'd be like, Sandler?
yeah. Like, you know, when Adam Sandler starts to scream, he's like,
but yeah, I remember you doing that. You're like, just do the thing. And I would like on set, I'd be like, wow, this is insane. Your wild things freak out. I remember that shooting that scene, and you were just like screaming about wild things, and it was like both the funniest thing I'd ever seen and the most uncomfortable thing. It's so intense.
Like, really loud. I'm really, really loud. Yeah. I like the voice crack too. The voice crack is great.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite moments on set?
I think a lot of the most memorable experiences I had in Toronto were like in the weird Airbnb you guys put me up in.
The Super Mario thing.
The Super Mario. So yeah.
Where literally every surface was covered in a picture of something from Super Mario, like the light switches, the toilet seat covers,
and they were like stickers from like a coloring book.
Yeah,
like just like little stickers of like the coins.
And you had to spend like 3 weeks there. Like, it was like your own.
Spent like 2.5 months there.
Padded cell.
I just remember that like so vividly, and then also like this, so super gnarly. Yeah, that's what I remember the most from my time in Toronto and filming. Yeah, and also just the time in the strip mall in Ajax.
Yeah, in the video store.
A lot of memories of the strip mall in Ajax.
Yeah,
I remember seeing Rico our DP like eat shit on like a Segway, like a balance board. That was really funny. That was like the second day.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you feel being a tip rising star?
What an interesting question. Yeah, it's been an experience, like the scheduling and like the opportunity to go to like the Spielberg premiere and meet everyone and like have it like kind of like insider access that they'd only really allow like A-list celebrities is really interesting and really a cool peek behind the curtain that I haven't really gotten to experience like at that caliber.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really reassuring. Like, I just have like a regular ass job at home. Like, I'm not there yet, but it is like a really nice pat on the back and point in the right direction that like I am doing the right thing, that it's not like totally fruitless that I dropped out of college and like, I'm just doing this and like work at a cafe, I feel good. I feel good about it.
Well, it's so important for me. Like, I think I've said this to you many times, like that, I really was looking for an actor who could almost be like the author of the film, the way that like Saoirse Ronan like is Lady Bird and, Jason Schwartzman is Rushmore, and someone who's like really, really special that like, you're 40 years from now, people will come up to you in the street and be like, Lawrence, for better or for worse,
Yeah.
I mean, also, I think you're playing a really unlikable character, too. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, was that hard? Did you ever feel like...
No, I'm an unlikable guy.
No, you're not. You're very true.
I'm a polarizing person. I'm like the Yeezus album.
No, I can see that. You have a black metal influence underneath you.
It's more of an industrial canal.
Yeah, skinny puppy underlayer.
9 Inch Nails. Yeah, that's so true.
Did you like working with me?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, it was a really fun experience.
Yeah.
It was really nice. Like, I don't know, doing a lot of like episodic Canadian TV. You just work with like a 54-year-old man who's been directing commercials for like 30 years and just does like, mad episodic TV, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. Hey, thanks for coming in. Nice to meet you, Isaiah. Get out of here, It was really nice to foster a relationship and feel like it was like a safe place to ask questions and really be able to hash it out and communicate. Like a lot of the time I feel maybe uncomfortable asking, is this going to be a stupid question to ask on set,
No, I felt like, we shot our film during like the third wave of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was like in a face shield and like it was really, intense. But I felt like no matter what, like I could always look to you and we were like a team, you and me, and like no matter what, like we were together, we were connected. So like we always had each other's backs,
Yeah.
And you took direction so well.
Thank you. So you always say that you like drew like Lawrence from a lot of personal experience, and this is how you were. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering what kind of compelled you to transpose your feelings and your experiences onto that of like a bitter teenage boy.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I feel like almost in a way it's like if you make your main character teenage boy, it's like a really safe space to be like super personal, because no one will ever be like, wow, this is not a biographical story, because you'd be like, I don't think so, it's a teen boy.
It's like a safe disconnect. Yeah.
But yeah, I there's a lot of stuff in the movie that's really personal, like kind of, I did have a panic attack in the back room of Blockbuster in high school over university, and my mom wasn't allowed in the room, so she did have to coach me through a door. I did work at Blockbuster. I was really obsessed with film. But I think I also kind of wanted to unpack this idea of like sort of the film bro, like the sort of budding teenage male cinephile, and having worked with those guys in some capacities and certainly having them kind of orbit my life, as a critic and a filmmaker, and the very worst of them are terrifying. And I always think I was thinking like, well, what were those guys like in high school? When they were like watching Stanley Kubrick movies in their parents' basements. It would there have been a way if you found them at the kind of the most pivotal time of like the formation of their ego? Could you have set them on a path of like healing before they become like film critics or men with letterbox accounts? Like, And you know, like I think it's interesting because when I was like trying to get the financing for the film through the Telefilm Talent to Watch grant, this filmmaker read my application. She was like, well, why is it a boy? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just kind of interested in that. She's like, well, you should make it a girl and then you'll get the money. And I'm like, yeah, but like that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
And also I don't think there's a lot of films that are made by women that are about men, maybe seeing them at a different angle than like men can see themselves, because I feel like I've seen this movie a lot made by like Lawrence's, but in the version of I like movies that's directed by a man, like Lawrence would probably like lose his virginity to Alana in like the back room of the video store, and like he would get into NYU, and like he would, you know, everyone would give him like a slow clap, like standing ovation at the urine. Like you were saying, this movie is kind of like the red-pilled Fablemans.
I did say that. Look at that. Yeah, so, sounds like the fucking evil Fablemans, fucking red-pilled Fablemans.
But that's interesting. Like, what does that mean?
I mean, like the Fablemans is almost like the movie that Lawrence thinks he's living in his head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's where he thinks he's at. And that's what he thinks is going to happen, you know?
That's, yeah, you're right. He thinks that everyone's going to be like, you are a genius.
You're a genius. You need to make films.
You're an artist.
Yeah,
You're so much more talented than we'll ever be, and you're going to leave us in the dust.
Yeah.
But instead, everyone's like, yo, pick a Canadian university because you're not getting into NYU.
It's a touch grass kind of movie, you know? Yeah. What did you learn during the process of making We Forgot to Break Up that you felt like you brought to set, and that was the key to the production?
That's a great question. Well, We Forgot to Break Up, which premiered at TIFF in 2017. That was my first time ever working with actors, because I came from music videos before that. And I was actually really intimidated by working with actors because I co-directed all those videos. And my co-director at the time was like, we kind of did this like division of labor thing. So I was always behind the camera with the DP, and he'd be like, don't talk to the actors. If you have direction for them, like you tell them to me, then I'll tell the actors what to do, so it's not confusing. And in my head, like somehow that was so intimidating. In my head, I was like, you don't know how to talk to actors. And then when I did We Forgot to Break Up, there were like 8 actors.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the same scene. And
it's a bigger cast than our movie?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And what I realized from that process is that I actually love working with actors. It's kind of my favorite part, because you're just analyzing like human behavior and sort of talking about people like they're real, like in the same way that you might analyze like your shitty roommate or like some guy that your friend's dating. And I just love like human behavior and psychology. So all that stuff was like really beautiful. So I think, you know, and some actors just don't want to do that, but actors who are generous like you that kind of want to give themselves over to the process, I think I took all that with me. So yeah, it was really fun just to like spend a lot of time like talking and connecting before because I feel like people think the movie starts like the day you get on set, but it's actually like the 6 months of preparation, just like getting to know somebody that are really part of the movie too, and sometimes even like more important.
What's your like the movie is it's a love letter to Ontario.
Burlington, Ontario.
Yeah. So what are your favorite things in Ontario? Like what are your most like nostalgic, like favorite like spots in Ajax, Burlington? You know?
Well, yeah, I mean I was born in Toronto, and my family's from Toronto because they kind of immigrated to Kensington Market after like escaping the Holocaust in the like 50s and 60s. But then when I was 5, I moved to Brantford and then Burlington. So I like a real like suburban kind of coming of age experience. And then I came back to Toronto for university. And for me, like I hadn't really seen any movies that kind of treated the sort of suburban Ontario Canadian experience and put it on the big screen. In all of its sort of lame, amazing cinematic glory. Yeah. And for me, like my whole high school experience was basically spent in like parking lots. Like there was one parking lot maybe 3 minutes away from my parents' house, like a 3-minute drive, and it had like Chapters bookstore, the Silver City like movie theater, and like a Dimitri's. And I would just go through like between all those 3 people and my weird like bohemian idea of like what my being cool. So I'd like read like magazines for free in the Chapters. then go see like Mean Girls and then like get an espresso at Dimitri's and be like, I'm bohemian, like no one understands me yet, but I know about culture. And then when I worked at Blockbuster, which was like a very formative experience for me and kind of what this whole movie's about, like that was, I think there's something about, and I know that you felt this way too as a teenager too, like when you decide like, I like movies, like that's who I am. I'm a cinephile, and like nobody understands Stanley Kubrick the way that I possibly can. And when I saw like Punch Drunk Love for the first time in high school, like I was like, this is everything. This is art. This is love.
Yeah.
Like I feel this so hard, and I would like just listen to the soundtrack of my weird like Walkman and walk around like the lame, you know, suburbs and just be like, I know life, and when will life happen to me? And I feel like that's kind of like what I wanted to make. And I hadn't seen any movies about just like teenagers who are really late.
That's
And obsessed with popular culture and like just waiting for high school to be over, like where like nothing happens to them.
Yeah, high school
they just annoy people and actually like around them. They don't like go to the prom, but like, you know, they like wish that they did.
Yeah, exactly.
But my favorite places in Ontario, I mean, I don't know, Niagara Falls is pretty.
What a terrible answer. Fucking gotta leave. That was so much setup to say you like Niagara Falls. That sucks.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, like, it's weird because I think back to that time and I was like, and now I really like love Burlington, and I lived there during the pandemic and I've spent a lot of time there. And the day shooting the, you know, exteriors of the movie where I got to go back to like all these places and sort of put it on film on these Panavision lenses was like really surreal. And we ended up finishing the shoot at like the exact same strip mall that I worked at Blockbuster, because we randomly decided to go to this Vietnamese restaurant, which is not very good because it's Burlington, Ontario. But it was really crazy to be like back in the same, like I was like literally looking at the like where I used to work at Blockbuster with my camera crew and like all these Panavision cameras, just being like, this is such a crazy full circle moment for me. I thought about like the ghost of my old self that was like walking around, like going to Mr. Sub, like in her Blockbuster uniform, and it was kind of cool. All I had was like literally Blockbuster was like my cultural like reckoning, because I was like, well, there's movies here and I can like, what is this? And there's a foreign film section, and that's how I watched like the Kieslowski like Trois Couleurs trilogy for the first time, and like all the Stanley Kubrick movies. And I remember like would come home with all this stuff. My mom's like, why are you watching The Manchurian Candidate? And I'm like, because I'm interested in it and I like movies, and I, you know, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my life. And she's like, well, that's an old movie. It's weird. And I'm like, but that's who I am.
Yeah. I have a similar experience. I told my dad once, I was like, oh yeah, me and my friend Aaron, we're gonna hang out and we're gonna watch a Eraserhead. He's like, are you gonna be getting fucking high? That's a high movie. I was just so terrified. Just no, Dad, no.
Yes, it's interesting when you like decide on the person that you want to become. I feel like that's what this movie's about too. It's sort of like trying on something, and you know, Lawrence is always wearing like weird cowboy hats and like dressing like Francis Ford Coppola and sort of trying things on, and like he's becoming a filmmaker, but all these other people are like, who are you? Yeah. And he doesn't know himself. Like I think he'll find out later in college. And I keep thinking about how I want to make a sequel where it's called like I Like Films, and he's like in college. And he's like a little bit different. Like we could just keep doing this. It could be like the Before Sunset movie where we keep checking in with him.
Yeah. Boyhood until I'm like 45.
Or like Truffaut did that with like the Antoine Donnell series, Division, Pierre Liot, where like the 400 blows, and then he keeps going on and keeps following Antoine Donnell throughout his life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you're into it, you know.
Let's make it happen, dude.
And that's the perfect ending. Now we just need to take our Polaroids so you can go.
Wait, I get a Polaroid? I can take all in the wall?